Alrighty, so we are live. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. As you guys know, we're doing these streams here every Saturday night at 9:30. Sometimes the times will change. Me and Classy here. Today is going to be a kind of a nerdy stream, but it's all good and it's all in fairness. We're going to be talking about Star Wars. Obviously, we're going to talk about Rian Johnson and The Last Jedi. Some crazy things have been happening, I would say, over the past year when it comes to Star Wars and like fan culture and stuff. I invited so after The Last Jedi so yeah, man. I noticed that you followed me. Did you watch one of like my Star Wars videos, or you just happened to see me on Twitter, or?
I think it was a retweet, something you had tweeted. Someone retweeted it, and I said, "Yeah, I like this guy's view on the situation." You know.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, because I do have a lot of Star Wars fans follow me because of my after The Last Jedi came out, I made a video titled "Why Feminism is Ruining Movies." So I wanted to. It wasn't like right after The Last Jedi came out, but I wanted to kind of let the smoke dial down after a while, because after The Last Jedi came out, obviously it was a very divisive movie, and everyone was arguing like, why was it a bad movie? Was it the script? Was it the creative decisions? And with my channel and with my niche, basically, I made that video because I feel like feminism is affecting our I made other videos about this too, just like the whole social justice thing, feminism, it's kind of infiltrating our movies. And when I was watching The Last Jedi in the theater last year, when it came out, I felt like it was so blatant with the decisions they made with, and Classy here, basically, with Classy here, he actually, one of the first videos or why we actually linked up is because he made a response video to me saying, oh, The Last Jedi, has nothing to do with feminism and has nothing to do with like an agenda, when I thought there was. So I guess maybe that's where I can get your opinion. Basically, in my video, I was saying how with The Last Jedi, they have all the generals as women. I feel like one of the biggest examples was Holdo. So they killed off, Admiral Akbar, and instead we have this purple-haired captain who didn't want to explain her plan and was tired of Poe's mansplaining in the movie. And I don't know, it was all just, I didn't enjoy it at all. So kind of what's your take on it, and why did you choose to kind of, you're saying your name is after The Last Jedi, and when did you make this Twitter account? Was it after the movie, and kind of what's your take on all this?
Yeah, it was after I had seen the movie. Obviously,
what's up?
Okay, go on. So I'm sorry, just there's an echo coming.
Was there feedback or something?
Yeah, I think it might have been from Dreamer's side. Go on. Sorry.
I thought I could hear an echo too.
Do you still hear the echo?
No, the echo's gone. Yeah, just go on.
Yeah.
No, I don't hear.
Yeah, just go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way a lot of people did when I walked out of the theater. I tried to, I guess, justify it to myself and tell myself, maybe it wasn't so bad. There were so many things happening so quickly that it was kind of hard to digest, 2.5 hours of it. But it was, I think it was obvious. I think that, knowing, maybe it was because I already knew Kathleen Kennedy's stance on those sort of things, that it seemed obvious to me while watching it.
Right.
But, I don't think so. I think it was quite obvious. The agendas, the political, I don't want to say pushing, but they definitely added a lot of their own opinions into the movie. Basically, I've heard people say that they were using it as a vehicle to push this sort of social justice thing, and I can see that. Also, there was the whole let the past die thing, and I think that it seems like a blatant shot at the old fans.
Yeah, that.
You know,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, and just to piggyback off what you're saying is just that I never understood that either, because it's like, you know, they're taking over the franchise, and that was kind of the most exciting thing when they announced these new movies, is that you know, we had the prequels that came out, what, 20, 25 years after the original movies, and you know, we didn't get to see the, you know, Han, Luke, and Leia. And now we had the announcement of the prequel, or the sequel trilogy, the Disney trilogy. And instead of them trying to I pay homage to, I mean, I guess they tried to pay homage to the old characters, but they definitely obviously wanted to focus on the new characters, which is fine. You know, with when The Force Awakens came out, I actually kind of I enjoyed The Force Awakens. I mean, did you like The Force Awakens?
I did. I didn't. You know, I enjoyed it enough to watch it a couple of times. You know, I actually bought it and watched it, you know, at home on Blu-ray. And
Right.
to me, I think the reason, there were obvious, you know, there were problems with it. The same problem that a lot of people talk about, which is, you know, kind of the copying. It's not as blatant of copying as most people say it is to me. I mean, I think it's kind of like a tribute sort of thing. And J.J. Abrams has said that he was trying to give people the feel of the old Star Wars. So I let it go. You know, I said, that's fine.
Right.
But what I really enjoyed about The Force Awakens was that it set up things. You know, and of course, those were things that Rian Johnson just threw out the window. So, you know, Last Jedi kind of killed The Force Awakens even for me.
Yeah, it seems like all the things they were setting up, it kind of didn't make sense. With me, the one that kind of hit hardest was with Rey's parents, where it's like,
Oh yeah, that was really lazy. I mean, I was one of the criticisms, because I actually did enjoy The Last Jedi, but one of my problems with the movie was like I was so anticipated to learn about Rey's parents. I thought like, okay, this is what we're gonna learn about Rey's parents. Is she related to Skywalker? Is she Obi-Wan's granddaughter? I heard that was one of the theories. Or is she this? Is she a genetically modified Jedi? I don't know. Right, and then it was just like, oh, just like some random parents just abandoned her in Jakku. Jakku was the planet? I forgot.
yeah, Jakku. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's disappointing, man. Like you don't do that to us. Like we were pretty hyped to learn about like Finn. Okay, it's fine. Like I don't think he really needs a story in terms of his parents. We know that like you know he was kidnapped to become a stormtrooper. Rey is like supposed to be like the sort of you know she's the new Jedi character, right? And it's interesting because you know people wonder. I don't know if midichlorians are still part of the series or whatever. I don't really care much for midichlorians, but because that's part of the story. I was hoping that like were Rey's parents also Jedi's as well. I don't know. You know.
Yeah, I didn't need some grand thing, but the thing with The Last Jedi, it seemed like they were trying to imply, they were trying to imply that basically because Kylo Ren turned evil and was this big, you know, force in the Force, you know, the evil person in the Force, there needed to be some balance, and that's why Rey was blessed apparently as being a Jedi, because there needed to be someone to go against him. And then now anyone can be a Jedi, and because they had the kids at the end who, you know, the little kid who was using the Force with the broom, and you know, that was kind of a creative decision that they tried to go with.
Okay, so they're retconning the midichlorians. I mean, that's a good thing if they are, to be honest.
I don't know if they are. I mean,
I hope they do.
But you know, I just think that I guess let me ask you this. I mean, was there anything that you did like about The Last Jedi?
Oh, let's see.
Yeah, I put you on.
Well, honestly, I mean, there were a few moments that weren't as bad, I guess. I can't really pick out anything specifically. I mean, there were so many things that I honestly can't name anything that I liked about it. There were just parts that I didn't hate about it. There were parts that didn't bother me. Basically, there were parts that I hated, and there were parts that I didn't mind so much.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm the kind of person that I'm able to, like, even if I don't like a movie, I'm still able to enjoy parts of it, right? With The
Yeah,
Last Jedi,
exactly.
yeah, for sure, yeah. With The Last Jedi, I did like the scene. Everyone was kind of complaining the thing with Snoke where he got killed by Kylo Ren.
Yeah,
I actually kind of liked that decision, and I kind of understood what they were trying to do, and how he, in The Force Awakens, he's kind of like, the Darth Vader fanboy. He has the helmet, is basically, and then he takes off the helmet, and it's revealed that he's, this little kid, uh, pretty much. And actually, I think it would have worked better in The Force Awakens if he kept the helmet the whole time, and then, like, when he confronts Han Solo on the bridge, that's when he took off the helmet. I think that would have been way more powerful, but we all have our own ideas and stuff. So,
Sure.
but I did like how in the Last Jedi, when he's talking to Snoke, and he's basically a disappointment to Snoke because he failed and he got defeated by Rey, where Snoke is like, "Oh, you're trying to be like Darth Vader. Take off that helmet." And then he takes off the helmet, breaks the helmet, and basically, and then he also makes the decision to kill Snoke. A lot of people were upset by that. I didn't really get that upset by it, to be honest. I liked the where it's like, at least Rian Johnson was trying to say, like, he's going to be the new villain and everything, even though, they kind of failed with many other things, especially with Rey. I just feel like, and classy liberal disagrees with me, but I think it's so obvious when it comes to the social justice agenda, because you have a character like Rey who has no flaws. She has no flaws. She can do everything. She's basically like, if you ever play Madden or NBA 2K, and you can, like, modify the stats of your player, and you go to a player and just, like, soup up all the stats, and then they just dominate the whole game. That's what Rey
yeah,
feels like sometimes, where it's like, in order to have a good movie, there's certain story archetypes that you have to follow, where the hero has to, struggle, has to overcome something. I feel like the only thing Rey had to overcome was the thing with her parents. And then when it was revealed that
Oh no, I mean she was also tempted by the dark side though, and she also had to basically beg Luke Skywalker to teach her anything, and he didn't even teach her that much in the end.
yeah, and I mean that was a creative decision that Rian Johnson decided to do, where it's like, like I said, I'm always trying to see the perspective of the director and, like, what is he trying to do. And I guess what he was trying to say is, like, oh, the Jedi is bad, and Luke became very cynical and a hermit, and just, kind of like, he reminded of like a Clint Eastwood character or something. And I can see why a lot of people had problems with that, because that's not the Luke Skywalker from the original trilogy. I mean, you go on Twitter, so many people talk about this and illustrate how, even though, Luke, it's 30 years later and he's an old man, granted, but he's a completely different character, it seems. I mean, so much so that Mark Hamill is, he calls him Jake Skywalker. He's not Luke Skywalker. So,
yeah.
As far as things I liked in The Last Jedi, so I liked I like Kylo Ren, with what they're trying to do with him. And then when there are people like, oh, he's whiny and he's annoying, and I'm like, yeah, that adds to his character. He's trying to be like a wannabe Darth Vader, and he feels like he needs to, like, compensate and stuff, and that kind of adds to his character. I mean, at least in my opinion. When
I don't mind Ren. I like Ren, actually. He I think he had a lot of promise in The Force Awakens, and I don't know. They just they didn't take him very far in The Last Jedi. To me, I don't know. He just I don't know. He just didn't go where I thought he would go. As far as I thought he would go.
Right.
The thing about taking the helmet off and smashing it, that was not bad. It's kind of like a progression, I guess.
Yeah.
But it just a lot more with him.
Yeah, of course. You know, I think what really kind of you know, sealed the deal with me when I was watching the movie was kind of like the whole they he really just misused the characters, especially Finn. You know, I don't I
Yeah.
hated the idea of splitting up Finn and Ray because, you know, granted, if you didn't like them, granted, you have your own personal issues, whatever. At least in The Force Awakens, you know, they had very good chemistry with each other. They were funny and things like that.
Sorry, can I interject?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I was actually pretty excited to see Finn, Poe Dameron, and Ray together. You know, kind of how like in the other movies. I mean, granted, every Star Wars movies they separate the characters at some point, right? But then at some point they also would have them together. I would have loved to see more chemistry between Ray and Finn. It doesn't even have to be all three at the same time, right? But like they couldn't at least have like a little bit more interaction between Finn and Ray. If they don't want to do a romance route, that's fine. In fact, that's probably even better that they're just friends. You know, we don't have to have every single character to be, romance. That's fine. A good friendship. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that, or maybe a little bit more pro Dameron. Or no, I think I don't know. Maybe you guys did we see enough pro Dameron and Finn chemistry in the Last Jedi? I don't quite remember.
Not in The Last Jedi, and that's I think that's what they
Okay.
should have done. Is they
No,
should.
Yeah.
Very complete.
I think they should have had Poe Dameron with Finn in The Last Jedi because I feel like they worked well together in the. You know, there's even like fan theories that like Finn and Poe are like a gay couple or something. You know, which I don't know. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But I just think he dropped the ball with that, and he instead chose to pair Finn with Rose. Rose is one of my least favorite things of The Last Jedi. She's just a sucky character. Um, had like a very poor payoff at the end. It was so stupid, and and that's kind of what pissed me off too, where they have this SJW agenda because they're like, oh, we need more female characters, so let's have Rose. And it's like, I don't hate female characters for the sake of female characters, but at least have it be good. Like I don't care if it's a character, whether they're a male or a female. I just want a good character. And I felt like Rose was such a shitty character. So, and just to kind of, my favorite Star Wars movie is the first one, the original, 1977 Star Wars, when it was just called Star Wars. To me, that movie is the perfect movie because it's like a classic. It's like it has the typical hero who feels like he wants to achieve more in his life and feels lost, and he has a calling. He has an opportunity to chase something. Then you have Han Solo, who's kind of like the rogue, the older rogue, the wisecracking, brash. He doesn't want to be a hero. He's kind of like an anti-hero. He's done some bad things. All the characters were set up perfectly. Obi-Wan, he's kind of like, he's the Gandalf. He's the old wise wizard who's guiding the new generation and everything. And the reason why I like the first movie and the original trilogy is because Luke Skywalker, he's a character that grows and develops. I mean, you look at Luke Skywalker from the original Star Wars and then look at him Return of the Jedi, they're completely different characters. You can see a development, you can see a growth. And that's the problem that you don't see, and that's the problem that you see with Rey, because with Rey, they want to have these strong female characters, but they don't want to have the female characters like fail, or they don't want to have the female characters have tribulation. They need to be perfect at everything. They're crazy. They're all powerful, and that doesn't work as a movie for me because. One of the reasons I like the original Star Wars is because it's that classic underdog story. It's that classic wise tale of the hero who, like I said, wants to do greater. He feels lost. He's stuck on this desert planet. And then all of a sudden, there's all these little moments that happen that, he has a chance encounter with the droids, with R2-D2 and C-3PO. And because of that, he meets Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it's all of these things that are fitting. And then he goes back, he sees the death of his aunt and uncle, and he goes back to Obi-Wan. And it's like one of my favorite scenes when he's like, you know, hey, I want to go with you, Obi-Wan. You know, there's nothing left for me here. You know, and they're playing that classic music, and it really hits me.
Yeah.
You know, I fucking love Star Wars, and I don't really get that with the new movies. And that's one of my major gripes, is especially with the Rey character. And that's why everyone calls her a Mary Sue. And you know, they try to, and then that's funny too when they try to address that. You know, the actors want to handle that criticism, and they're like, and Rey is, and Daisy Ridley, who plays Rey, she's like, oh, it's because of sexism. And that's, I guess, another point we can piggyback off to, where it's like any criticisms of these movies, it's because you're sexist, or because you're, you know, you don't like female characters, or you don't like diversity, or you don't like this. And they're always putting the blame on the fans. Why is that? And you know,
It's your fault for not liking the movie. It's your fault for not liking every aspect of the movie.
yeah, I mean, that's basically what they're
Yeah,
saying.
you just don't get it. You know, they say that a lot of the time. A lot of the time, you don't get it. You don't understand it because it's too deep for you. It goes over your head, you know, and that's ridiculous.
Oh,
It's not that complex of a movie.
right, right. We have Shotokan Warrior says here. Let me see here. I'm not surprised to hear that Star Wars is being used as a way to preach today's standards of social justice. It seems that pop culture movies and superhero movies, particularly, are being used as tools to preach these social standards. Yeah, that's just blatantly obvious. Like anyone who wants to deny that, you know, it seems like they don't understand like what the truth is out there, and it's very obvious with the movies. Like I said, all the generals are women. All the generals are women. Why? And then all the First Order, all the captains are the white males. Like I think even General Hux, when Poe is like having this banter with him and trying to trick him, like comments something about his like complexion and stuff. And it's like, come on, guys, like the agenda is so obvious, right? He also says here, Shotokan says, the TV show Supergirl just announced today that they're going to have the first transgender superhero. So,
Yay.
I don't know what you think of that, but
Yay.
yeah.
I don't care. I mean, you know, stuff like that, I don't care. If you want to, I guess that's an established IP, though. You know, it's an established universe. So I'm sure it'll annoy a lot of people because, and I've heard people say this, if you want to introduce characters like this, make some new ones. Make a new IP. Make a new creation. Don't bring it into already established universes and try to change, you know, what's already been done in the past. As far as, you know, if it's going to affect the old characters, you know, that's what I don't like it, and most people don't like it, you know.
Yeah, can we make Superman obese? Like, I feel that we need more fat superheroes, you know, to appeal to the sort of people of size community.
They're
You know?
gonna have a plus sized superhero. Like it was like this girl who's like plus sized. Apparently,
Is that her hero name, plus size?
I mean, it might as well be, because that's what they want to care about. Instead of making a movie about aspirations and a character that, you know, I don't know, like they don't get, I don't know. Whatever.
They don't care about actually making good characters. They care only about appealing to these stupid demographics. Look, if she ends up being I mean, I don't know anything about the plus size character. If she ends up being a good character, and if the movie ends up being good, that's fine. I just hope that, you know, they're not making a plus size character for the sake of making a plus size character. That's my point.
I mean, that is what they're doing. Like with all of these things, it is for the sake of this, instead of making them. And that's what I feel like is the problem with the Star Wars movies now. It's like, you know, we have to have this kind of character. Like they had the Han Solo movie, and they had like a feminist robot, and it's like why are we having this? I don't understand that. So it is kind of a shame, as someone who does love Star Wars, and it actually is making me go back and appreciate the prequels, because The prequels, it seems like we're always getting shitted on. What's your opinion on the prequels?
I never did hate the prequels. I actually enjoyed them for what they were. You know, I
What?
think a lot of people.
What?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know if he's joking.
You
or
know,
not.
they
I-
you know, it's not. I think people wanted the same feel as the original trilogy, and you know, it's obviously not going to feel the same way because it was filmed and done in a different time. It was written and filmed in a different time. You know, you had the prequels that came out years after the original trilogy, so you're not going to have the same feel to it. But if you ask me, you know, if Star Wars, the prequel trilogy or the sequel trilogy, I would have to go with the prequels. I didn't hate them. I don't think that they're masterpieces by any means, and I don't hold them up to you know, the same level as the original trilogy. But I didn't hate them. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. Are you familiar with the Plinkett reviews?
Yeah.
No, I haven't heard of that.
Those are
Oh wow,
really.
that's crazy. Yeah, the Plinkett reviews, I mean, they have millions of views. They have millions of views on YouTube. Basically, they're the reviews of all three prequel movies that supposedly like dissects the movies and shows why they're bad movies. And I really like those reviews. And I basically it kind of had buried the hatchet for me in saying that that the prequels were bad and everything. And even though I grew up with the prequels. But now I feel like with these new movies coming out and these new movies that have come out, especially to me, I didn't really. The only movie I've liked is The Force Awakens. I didn't really like Rogue One. I didn't like The Last Jedi, and I didn't like Han Solo. And it just, to me, it's just scary because it's like, yeah, all the new movies are not going to be great.
How's my audio?
You're good, man.
Okay. I thought Rogue One was okay. I just think that the movie was way disorganized. Like, it had too many characters at once. We never really got a chance to truly, like, sort of bond with the characters because it's just way too many characters. And some of the characters are pretty cool. Like, I like the robot character, I forgot his name. I thought he was pretty cool. Not sure how I feel about CGI Grand Moff Tarkin. It's good, but I can still tell it's CGI. Almost there. We're almost there.
I just think it was a largely forgettable movie. And it didn't even like need to exist. That's what I feel.
Well, they had to explain the Death Star plans. I mean, that's a huge plot hole in Episode 4. How can Luke Skywalker so easily destroy the Death Star? So easy, just a little tiny shot, boom.
Because it's
an obvious flaw. Like they made fun of it in the Family Guy specials. We're like, oh, can we at least put like a little bit of plywood?
Well, I feel like with Star Wars, that's why the original movies are so great, is because they're simple and you don't need to know like, oh, well, what about this? What about that? I mean, any movie you can probably look and pick it apart and like, oh, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but like a little bit of plywood.
I just think it's missing the point. Like the point of the original Star Wars is, like I said, it's a classic movie that is just showing the hero overcoming obstacles. It's like a coming of age movie. It's like one of the best coming of age movie of all time, and it has so many. It draws inspiration from so many elements. It draws inspiration from Lord of the Rings, the books, obviously. This is way before the movies came out. It draws inspiration from Wizard of Oz. It draws inspiration from westerns. It draws inspirations from old Japanese samurai films. All these. It takes the best of elements of all these different things and creates this great. To me, like I said, many people like to say The Empire Strikes Back is their favorite Star Wars movie, which I like. I like Empire, but to me, the original Star Wars is my favorite. Will be my favorite. And I also recommend anybody watching. And I don't know if you haven't seen it yet. After the Last Jedi, but there's a documentary out there called Empire of Dreams, which you can find for free on YouTube. I was watching on YouTube the other day for free. And it's basically the story of how the original Star Wars was created. It's probably one of the best Star Wars documentaries out there, and I love it because it shows like the struggles that George Lucas had to go through to make that original Star Wars. No one believed in him. No one gave him a chance. He had
I think even the actor who played Obi-Wan Kenobi, actually like hated the movie. Actually,
he didn't. Alec Guinness, he didn't hate the movie. He just, you know, like many other actors, they didn't understand the movie, and I mean, no one thought it was going to be a hit. You know, everyone when they were making it thought it was going to be a flop. But the reason I like that I have no qualms, and I'm not embarrassed to say when I saw, I kind of teared up a little bit when I was watching the documentary, because to me, it's like witnessing history. It's showing the story of Lucas to make that movie. And it reminds me of like, you know, like Steve Jobs making the iPhone, or, you know, Da Vinci painting the Mona Lisa. It's someone like going through so many trials and tribulations to accomplish what they want and to accomplish something great. And when that movie finally hit theaters back in 1977, it was the first blockbuster. It was the first movie where people were, you know, in lines around the theater, around the block, you know, pissing in bushes because they didn't want to get out of line. It was the first monumental movement, and it became a pop culture phenomenon. And I go ahead. Sorry, I ran.
I just want to say that, like you said, like no one believed in it. That's true, but I think didn't Steven Spielberg was like one of the few guys that actually saw potential in it.
He was, but I mean, even though Steven Spielberg, I mean, the only movie he had made at that point was Jaws.
But Jaws was like pretty big.
It was pretty big, yeah. Steven Spielberg wasn't the one giving him money to make it. All the people at 20th Century Fox didn't believe in Lucas, and you know, Lucas literally had to. You know, he went to the hospital. He was about to have a heart attack because he was like overworking himself. You know, trying to get the movie done. And I'm just a firm believer that sometimes, you know, the struggles you go through, the trials and tribulations that you go through, because of those trials and tribulations, you know, that's gonna just make a better movie. It's gonna make the best thing possible. You know, it's why, you know, you compare it to like a clam that has dirt in the clam, and that creates the pearl. You know, it's a very common analogy there, right? And that's why I love that. And I feel like that's lacking from the new Star Wars. The new Star Wars, you know, it's the complete opposite of how it was from when it began. When it began, it was just an idea, and it was just a vision from George Lucas. And nowadays, it's just all corporatized, and they're just milking nostalgia. You know, I should have seen the writing on the wall when they made The Force Awakens, and it was just blatant fan service. And I mean, they literally copied the original Star Wars movie with the hero being on the desert planet. You know, I don't got to get into it. You guys know. And I should have seen the writing on the wall. And I was saying like, oh, you know, the new movies are going to change it up and everything. But no, they had to then they had to go depend on their own ideas with the new movies after The Force Awakens. And it's obviously that's why they sucked. So, at least in my opinion, like I said, I don't really dig Rogue One. Rogue One, I don't see the purpose of it existing. I don't know any name of any character from that movie unless they were already in the original trilogy. I saw Han Solo. There's a reason that movie bombed. And of course we know The Last Jedi. So, but
I still think the Star Wars Christmas special was the best.
Oh yeah,
Star Wars movie for sure.
I've never seen that actually.
Oh, it's really good.
Oh,
it's really underrated in my opinion. I don't know why George Lucas doesn't want to release it on Blu-ray, remastered version.
He like hates it. He hates the Star Wars special. Like he like fought to like remove it from so many like things. Like he controlled it not to be released just because he was embarrassed about it. But whatever. All right, guys. So I guess one thing. I mean, what is your opinion? I guess of Rian Johnson after The Last Jedi. I mean, did you like him before he made The Last Jedi, or did you even know who he was?
I didn't know much about him in the first place. I had, I had heard from other people that, he did Looper and I can't remember the name of the other film.
Yeah.
Uh, and I had never seen those. So I didn't know enough about him to form an opinion, honestly.
Okay.
Then, of course, after the film, I think it's obvious how everyone felt, or how a majority of people felt. And I was one of those, of course. I just, why? The question was why? Why would he do this? Why would he? The whole subverting your expectations thing. It sounds like a broken record because everyone talks about it, but a lot of it was so unnecessary. It was just kind of like gotcha moments. Uh,
Right.
you know, oh, you thought, no, we're doing this. I got you. Completely unnecessary most times. And like you said about Snoke, the fact that he killed Snoke off, that was unexpected, but it wasn't necessarily annoying. I didn't have a problem with it. It would have been nice to know more about Snoke or see what he can do. But when he was killed, it was shocking. No one was expecting it. But that was one of the instances when I could kind of take it or leave it. It didn't really bother me.
Right. Yeah, and speaking of Looper, we're gonna be watching. I just want to watch this video real quick because, when The Last Jedi was announced, that Rian Johnson was gonna direct, I was actually very excited because I'm a huge Rian Johnson fan. Before that movie even came out, before The Last Jedi came out, because he made Looper. Looper is actually one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a very good movie.
Yes, that's a really good movie. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I actually got permission from this guy to watch a little bit of this video that we're gonna watch real quick and kind of react to, because it's like one of the best time travel movies I've ever seen, and it has like such an interesting take on time travel. And I think the problem with Rian Johnson is that he's a great science fiction director.
Yes, for sure.
Right, but Star Wars isn't necessarily science fiction.
What do you mean Star Wars isn't science fiction?
No, Star Wars is like
space opera.
Space opera, yeah. It's a fantasy opera. It's more traditional, and it's not like a typical sci-fi film.
Okay, so it's kind of like Lord of the Rings, but like in space.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can kind of say that. I feel like I said, Star Wars is its own thing, and it borrows the best elements from so many different movies, but the fact that it's in space is like a minuscule thing about the story. It's more about the characters, about Luke, and about, like I said, the hero's journey, the coming of age, finding out that Darth, the most evil guy in the planet is, in the galaxy, is his father, like, all these crazy twists. But I just want to play this for the audience real quick and kind of show you guys what I'm talking about and why I kind of liked it. I really like this movie. So obviously, please interrupt if you have something to say, and I'll pause it. So,
when you create a fictional story, you give it certain rules. You establish to the audience what can and cannot happen. For example, for Star Wars, the writers had to establish space travel, intergalactic war, artificial intelligence, aliens, the Force, and more. For Pirates of the Caribbean, the writers had to establish the non-fictional world of pirates with the fictional world of mysticism and legend. The rules of a fictional universe must be established early on in the story. If they aren't, then the audience will not believe the story later. Once you set the rules of your universe, they can't be broken, right? Today I want to look at Looper and answer this question. Does a story have to obey its own rules? Looper is a sci-fi action movie about time travel. The plot is about a looper named Joe. He works for a mob in the future. It's difficult to murder people in the future and get away with it because of tracking technology, so the mob sends people into the past and the loopers kill them. These killers are called loopers because at the end of their usefulness to the mob, their old self is sent back to them to be shot and killed. This is called closing your loop. After that, you get to enjoy the next 30 years of your life. This happens to Joe just like the rest of the loopers. The problem is that his older self doesn't come back ready to die. He comes back with the intention of finding a powerful mobster from the future called the Rainmaker and kill him as a child. Also, telekinesis exists. Does that feel tactile?
did you say something?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay, got you. Sorry.
Dawn, Watch the movie. It feels the same way in the film as well. This is the world we are given, time travel and telekinesis. Although telekinesis feels a bit shoehorned into the beginning, the audience believes what happens in the end relating to it. But the time travel in the movie gets messy. When we watch old Joe, now young Joe in this scene, close his loop, we follow him as he goes to China and settles down with the love of his life. Then the Rainmaker comes to send him back and close his loop. Old Joe's wife accidentally dies, and old Joe begins his mission to find the Rainmaker as a child and kill him. But there's a problem. At the end of the movie, we find out that old Joe's mission to kill the Rainmaker actually creates the Rainmaker. But this cannot be the case logically. If old Joe, when he was young Joe, closed his loop and killed his older self, which we watch happen, then the Rainmaker does not exist, and Joe grows up to meet the love of his life, and they all live happily ever after. But if old Joe can simultaneously be the cause of the Rainmaker and a victim of him, then that would mean there are multiple streams of time, not just one. Old Joe actually alludes to this idea in the diner.
Because my memories aren't really memories. They're just one possible eventuality now. And they grow clearer, cloudier as they become more or less likely.
But it...
So, yeah, I just wanted to watch that real quick. I won't watch the whole video, but... you know,
it's a really good video. I'm gonna check. I'm gonna watch the whole thing later.
Yeah,
I thought Looper was a really good movie. I'm not gonna lie. When I saw it for the first time, I was a little bit confused with my friend. We both enjoyed it, but we're like, yeah, we're gonna have to watch it a second time just so we can fully understand. But besides that, I understood most of it, and I thought it was a great movie. Like really, I don't know if I said underrated too much. I hope I didn't. I don't think. Whatever. It's an underrated movie. It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, you can see that when he made the movie, it's kind of just he made it from passion, and you know, he wanted to explore these ideas that, you know, he enjoyed. Like I said, anyone who hasn't watched it, After the Last Jedi, if you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it. I mean, you can probably watch it for free on the internet somewhere. It's a pretty good movie. And that's why it came out, I think in 2011 or 2012. And when I saw that, I was like, I instantly became a fan of his. Rian Johnson is also involved in Breaking Bad. You know, and Breaking Bad is, you know, my favorite show of all time, hands down. And that's why when they, like I said, when they announced The Last Jedi, and they're like, oh yeah, it's going to be the Rian Johnson, I was actually pretty excited. And unfortunately, that's when the movie came out. I felt like he didn't really go with like, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense now that I think about it when I think of Looper and about subverting expectations. And that's why he kind of, you know, he's kind of a contrarian for the sake of being a contrarian. That's why it's like, oh yeah, you think Luke is going to be like this? No, he's going to throw the lightsaber over his shoulder. You know, you think this is going to happen?
Look at it from this perspective. Who wrote the script for Star Wars Episode 7?
Wasn't it J.J. Abrams or no?
Yeah. I think Rian Johnson is a great director, but whoever was responsible for writing the script, well, let's just say they could have done a better job. And normally it's possible to make a pretty good movie from a bad script, but if the script is especially bad, it's a challenge. Let's put it that way. I still ended up enjoying it, but I still think that there are flaws in the movie, and I think it's not totally Rian Johnson's fault. I think a lot of the blame for why the movie is so bad is one, marketing, obviously. I think that's maybe where I somewhat agree with you. There's a sort of social justice influence when it comes to that. But two, I think it was just whoever was in charge of it, they did a really poor job of the script. They could have, I think they should have revised it, and they should have fixed a lot of things.
Yeah, well, you know, the reason why I like The Force Awakens, you know, and J.J. Abrams made that movie. J.J. Abrams, he pretty much had made The Force Awakens before he made The Force Awakens, which was the 2009 Star Trek movie. The 2009 Star Trek movie, you know, I'm a huge fan of Star Trek, by the way, but a lot of people didn't like that movie because it
felt too much like Star Wars.
It felt like Star Wars, yeah. He basically made a remake of A New Hope in that Star Trek movie, because in that Star Trek movie, you know, you have Captain Kirk, who, like I said, he plays that hero who feels lost, doesn't know what he wants to do with his life. He has Captain Picard, or not Picard, Captain, I forgot his name. tells him to enlist into Starfleet. He meets all these people. You know, he's kind of like that, just like I said, that hero who's lost. I feel like Captain Kirk in the 2009 Star Trek movie, he's kind of like a combination of Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, pretty much. And then, of course, in Star Trek 2, he has the old Spock, which plays the Obi-Wan role as like the wise old mentor. So all the story beats that Star Trek has, it's literally from A New Hope. And it's not just me saying this. He talks about this in the commentary, because I own the movie and I watched the movie with the commentary. And he references so many things, like, you know, when Captain Kirk is looking and watching the starship being built over the horizon. That's it's a direct callback to Luke Skywalker on Tatooine, looking at the twin sunset and with the music playing and just contemplating like what he wants to do. So there's so many callbacks and stuff. So J.J. Abrams just made the same movie again with The Force Awakens, with the optimism and everything. And like I said, now that I'm really thinking about Looper and what it does, and with expectations and stuff, it kind of makes sense with what he tried to do with Star Wars, but I feel like it didn't pay off. Something that, and after The Last Jedi too, man, interrupt me if I'm talking too much. I will rant like nonstop. So please interrupt me if you want to say something.
No, it's cool.
All right. The next video we can watch, which kind of, I want to get your opinion on it, is Mark Hamill, who plays Luke Skywalker. It seemed like he was very vocal in his disappointment with the movie, and what, like, how it wasn't, what he thought it was going to be, and wasn't enjoying it. So there's a kind of like a funny video here I think we can watch too, and just, it'll be a little funny video we can react to and talk about Mark Hamill. So, and like I said, please interrupt if you want to say something.
I'm joined now by Mark Hamill, who is walking away. Is there anything you haven't gotten to do in a Star Wars movie that you want to do? Musical number, maybe? Sing and dance?
There's something seriously wrong with you.
Is there... the audience or the world about this one in comparison to the other ones?
It's the longest one. Doesn't matter. Luke Skywalker is here, and Amy's here with me.
Yes, we
Miss
have.
you, stranger.
Thank you. Miss you too. What was your initial reaction when you found out you were returning just for one scene?
When I read 7, I said, I love everybody's part except mine. And on this one, it was similar in the sense that I said to Ryan, I'm so surprised how you see Luke.
These films now are being made by children.
But how is it for him, for your kids to grow up with their dad as Luke Skywalker?
But he's like, he likes David Cronenberg films better.
What's the biggest difference from when we last saw Luke in the end of Return of the Jedi to when we meet him now?
I just want to say, dude, that's the thing. What really stuck out to me is, like, in all these interviews for The Last Jedi, that's when I kind of started getting a bad feeling, because Mark Hamill was not excited about this movie. He was not excited to talk about it. He was not excited to promote it.
They could have handled his character better, I'm not gonna lie.
What's that?
They could have handled the character better. Osvaldo and I talked about this once, and we both agreed that, like, what they should have done is that, because sadly Cassie Underwood, what's her name?
Kathleen Kennedy?
No, the actress that played Carrie Underwood, the actress that played
Carrie
Princess
Fisher.
Leia.
Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, Carrie Fisher. I don't know why I said Underwood. I'm sorry. Because sadly Carrie Fisher passed away. I think they should have, killed her off in the series, because now, she's not gonna have a death scene, right? She's just gonna have, she died in battle. It's gonna be in the text. That's how they're gonna handle it. And no, but Mark Hamill's still alive, so I'm like, this is a good opportunity to, I don't know, like, maybe they could have killed him off in the Last Jedi as well, but maybe they could have, I don't know, they could have done a better job. They could have handled his character better.
Yeah, that's something that, out of all the talk from The Last Jedi, that was something that really upset people, is just how they handled Luke. And and it's kind of weird because when you had the Force Awakens, they kind of like cocked blocked you because the whole movie was about him. The whole movie of the Force Awakens was trying to find his lightsaber and trying to find Luke, and he's the golden child of the original movies. I would definitely have seen. I wanted to see him, play more of the Obi-Wan role that I thought he was going to play, and he kind of played, but I didn't really agree with because he was training Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren, and because he kind of felt that he was going to the dark side. I got to kill him, and it's like that doesn't seem like something Luke Skywalker is going to do. Like it seems completely out of character, right?
My main thing, honestly, that was the biggest thing about for me. It was just completely out of character. The whole, I mean, from the beginning, from the tossing of the saber, I've seen people try to justify it by showing the scene in Jedi where he tosses the saber to the side and says he won't fight. It's a completely different situation. That is my biggest gripe, really. I can about The Last Jedi, but I can't overlook the Luke Skywalker thing with Luke.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things. And what I felt. Are you saying something, Classy?
No.
Oh, okay. I hear like an echo. I think it's me talking in the background. But yeah, the biggest thing too, it was with me, was Luke Skywalker, and it's kind of disappointing because I love Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill is, we were talking about it before you came on, after Last Jedi. We were talking about, the new Batman animated series is going to hit Blu-ray in October. And Mark Hamill to me is probably the best Joker of all time, the animated Joker. He's been playing that role. I mean, I think he was in the, he did it in the Arkham games. Voiced Joker in the Arkham games. He's voiced the Joker in so many things that he's kind of like the quintessential animated Joker, and a lot of people don't even know about it. Like you tell people like, oh yeah, Mark Hamill voices the Joker, and people are like, what? Oh my god, I don't even know that. And it's kind of like a little secret, and I wish more people knew it. And he's such a good actor. He really enjoys the movies and the pop culture and stuff, and it's really sad with what they did with his character, because it seems I felt like it was very obvious that he did not like the direction. I mean, he's literally saying it, like he's not holding anything back. He's literally saying like, yeah, I didn't like what they did with my character, and I feel like there was so much more potential that they didn't follow up with him. So but let's just continue watching this, because I just think it's like funny reactions he has. And of course, this is kind of like edited in a funny way, but you're still able to see him answer these questions, and he kind of jokes and has a lot of sarcasm. But I always tell people that there's always truths hidden behind in jokes.
Now, in The Last Jedi.
Who is this guy?
It's only a movie. And if you think you're going to go into the movie and recapture your childhood, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
There's been a lot of stuff with the books, video games that have added to Luke's journey.
Yeah.
He's been looking for these Jedi artifacts and things. How much does that play into your performance? How much are you paying attention to this new canon stuff?
You'll see.
Are you bummed that Luke didn't get sort of a reunion with Han Solo?
Absolutely. In fact, when I was reading it, I thought, if Leia's trying to mentally contact me and she's not successful, she'll rush to his aid. She'll get close to him and then get into some dire situation, and that's when I show up for a minute. Yay! Save her life. Then we rush to Han and are in the same position that Rey and Finn and Chewie are. Too late to save him, but witnesses. And I say, because it would carry so much emotional resonance into the next film. For us, his wife, his best friend to witness, instead of two characters who've known him, 20 minutes? Well, Chewie.
Yeah, and that's a great point too that he makes, where it's like, a lot of people, at least in the first movie, in the Force Awakens, that's the Han Solo movie. He's in that movie. He gets killed off. I don't really mind that he got killed off, but that's something that was, very disappointed with, a lot of these the fans now, is that we didn't have like a reunion with the three characters with Leia, Luke, and Han. And that would have been so cool. Like, why couldn't we have that? At least in The Force Awakens, you can have Luke somehow show that he's grieving for Han. Even in The Last Jedi, he's told that Han is dead, and then they cut away right away. It's only in a deleted scene on the Blu-ray that shows that Luke is grieving over Han. And it's just such a mistreatment for the old characters. And I understand they're trying to, put some more focus on the new characters, but they didn't do that properly, because I don't care about the new characters. Especially Rey. I like Poe. I like Poe, and I like Finn. I think Finn was really mishandled in The Last Jedi, and Poe was
Definitely.
Poe was really mishandled in The Last Jedi too. They made Poe the quintessential, the mansplainer who had to be like put in his place, and Leia was chastising him, and Holdo was chastising him. I really don't like what they did with him. So I feel like they had the potential with those new characters, but completely dropped the ball.
So we signed on.
Yeah, exactly.
And like I say, I didn't know it was going to be bought by Disney, because this was summer of 2012. Then they announced that Disney had bought Lucasfilm around Halloween, which was October 30th. We didn't know who the director was going to be, and then they announced J.J. Abrams, and it all came out. It was all very, very exciting, and I hope people are happy. It seems like, because in Hollywood, remember, kids, it's not important if it's high quality. Only money. So, because The Force Awakens made a lot of money, I can't be. It's not ergo. It's good. And oh my God, I just realized this is the wrong thing. Because I shouldn't have gotten that specific.
I mean, if I leaked something, they'd cut off my head and throw it right in my face. People are still mad that the Wookiee didn't get a medal.
The Jedi must end.
It's time for the Jedi to end.
Did your vision and Ryan's vision, did it coincide with the way that Luke ends up in this film that you thought it would all these years later?
No.
No, not at all.
How much of Luke Skywalker did you discuss with Colin Trevorrow?
I had discussions with Colin, and I was very excited because we were on the same page in terms of where we wanted to go and how we wanted to see Luke in a way we've never seen him, even in this current version. But I don't know what went on. I don't want to know, because there's no upside to that story. I mean, I like all those people. I like Kathy, and I like Lawrence Kasdan, and all the people that were involved in that decision. But sometimes ignorance is bliss, and they don't tell me anything.
Why do I always watch the ocean? I'm guarding against the greatest enemy of civilization, Gungans. If they show up, I'll kill them all. What are Gungans?
Oh, Jar Binks is raised.
Oh, okay. That's even funnier now.
There'll be no more wars. We'll end world famine. Hey, baby.
Right.
Love is all you need.
And that we failed. And now the world is worse than it's ever been. Thought Watergate was bad? That was just two parties. Now it's a political entity with a hostile foreign government. And that we've been in perpetual war. I thought, well, at least after Vietnam, we'll never get into another pointless war that will, with no clear objective. We've been in perpetual war for what, 17, 18 years now? And I'm loving every minute of it. Except for now, of course.
So yeah, I can hear Mark Hamill probably talk all day. He's such a brilliant guy. Something I wanted to point out what he's saying is that was kind of the most annoying thing too with the movies is that Classy, you can hear me, right? By the way, it's
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
After The Last Jedi, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, because your avatar it showed. Okay, just making sure. So yeah, the thing with The Last Jedi is that you know, or what these new movies rather, not just The Last Jedi, but The Force Awakens, is that it seems like there's a weird progression, because you have the Return of the Jedi, you know, 30, 40 years ago, where you know, it's supposed to signify the end, and it's such a happy ending, and you know, the Empire is defeated and all these good things. And then it like, oh yeah, then the Force Awakens comes around, and it's like, oh, you know what? None of that mattered. We're in the same position again. I thought that was kind of lazy and doesn't make sense, or I felt like the explanation wasn't great. So yeah, and what's your kind of opinion too with like the Colin Trevorrow thing with, you know, they changing the directors? It kind of seems like they're scrambling, and now they have J.J. Abrams filming the new movie, Episode 9, and ironically, today is the first day they actually started filming that movie. Do you have a take on that, or an opinion, or?
Yeah, absolutely. They apparently, I had read in a couple of places that Kennedy and Trevorrow butted heads because he wanted to feature Luke more. He wanted Luke to be more prominent in the film rather. And Kennedy even told Abrams that they wanted to minimize how much Luke was in The Force Awakens. That's why he ended up only being at the end, because he was outshining the new characters. So they wanted to feature Rey and Finn and Poe and the new characters more prominently. That's why they relegated him to the end, and that's the same thing that they wanted to do in The Last Jedi initially. But Trevorrow wasn't going for it. You know, he didn't want anything to do with that. Him and Mark Hamill were on the same page. They wanted Luke to be featured more. Now, whether or not they had intended on killing Luke off, I don't know. But I know that George Lucas intended to live until Episode 9, and then he would have him be killed off in Episode 9. But I wish Trevorrow would have been kept on board. But you know, Kennedy has had a interesting situation with several directors. Lord and Miller, she fired them. Had some issues with Trevorrow. I think she had issues. Someone else on Rogue One. They had to bring someone else in to refilm a lot of it. So Trevorrow, I really have gotten to see his vision of Episode 8.
Oh yeah, and that is what really worries me too. Is like, why aren't we doing things right the first time? Like it happened with Rogue One, where they don't know what's happening. They have a director, they fire them, and then someone else comes on board. The same thing happened with Han Solo. The Han Solo movie felt like it was it suffered from the most with all these scrambling of the directors and the vision. You know, they had filmed like so much of the movie, and then they scrapped it and had to refilm it. And because there was so much refilming, you know, it actually ended up being like the most expensive Star Wars movie of all time. And that's why it flopped, or it flopped anyways. It would have flopped anyways, but that contributed to it flopping even more, because the budget was so damn high because of all the extra spending. And I don't know, this Kathleen Kennedy, you know, people always say like, oh, there's no social justice agenda. So why are they at the Star Wars celebration? They have all the Star Wars producers wearing shirts saying the Force is female. Like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, what are you trying, you know? Go ahead.
I heard that was some sort of promotion or something, but that's what she's all about. And she's been pretty vocal about it in interviews. She doesn't owe the male fans anything, the longtime male fans. She said she doesn't feel like anything.
She
wants to do.
She said something. Yeah, speaking of that, she said something like, you know, like she was asked about like the old fans, and she said I don't remember the specific quote, but she said something to like, oh, we don't have to worry about like the old fans or something. And I don't know, like she shows a blatant disrespect for why Star Wars is so special. And I feel like Star Wars isn't special anymore too, because now, you know, when a Star Wars movie was coming out, Like, you know, less is more. Like, I don't need to see a Star Wars movie every fucking year, or you know, at this point, it's every 8 months, because now, not only you guys are rushing things, you guys, you know, don't know what you're doing, because you know it happened with Rogue One, it happened with Solo, where you have a director don't know what you're doing, and then you scrap it and have another director come in, and it's like, what are you guys doing? You guys are, this is Disney. Like, you guys have so much fucking money, you have so many resources, and you can't get this right. And the problem too that I feel when they bought Star Wars, they just thought, where it's like, you know what, yeah, we're gonna make so many Star Wars movies because Star Wars just makes money. It's so big. And it's like, well, no, it's so big and it's so special and popular because the movies are good, because it's something that people look forward to. You know, every, you know, even when the prequel's coming out, it was like, what, 2-3 years between each prequel movie. So you had this like slow buildup. You had this anticipation. Now there's no anticipation. That's why no one went to see the Han Solo movie, because it's like, like, who cares? You know, and a Star Wars movie can't just be average. And that's what a lot of these movies have been. They've just been average.
I didn't see the Solo movie.
I wasn't going to see it, but I had like a group of friends that wanted to see it, and I just had nothing to do that night. So I was like, you know what, let me go see it. And it was exactly what I expected. I wish I hadn't seen it, but there was a reason I wasn't going to see it, and it was obvious. And with the Solo movie, I mean, I've already talked about it in a previous stream. With the Solo movie, they're just banking on nostalgia. They're trying to, you know, they have the origin of Han Solo's name, and it came out so cringy, and you know, with they had the you know, the general in the Empire Academy or whatever, the academy say, you know, he's like, oh, I'm all alone, I don't have a last name. So then the general's like, Han Solo, and like, okay, so that's how Han Solo it's so lame. You know, they have the origin of Chewbacca's nickname. I don't know, you know, and then
Bro, I really need, what I'm really disappointed about that movie is that they didn't have a scene about blue milk. A lot of the fans were really disappointed that they didn't have some sort of explanation for blue milk, you know, and they should have also done a scene explaining more about the physiology of a wampa, you know. Why is it that they smell bad, you know, in the inside worse than in the outside? That was very disappointing.
Yeah, it reminds me, there's actually like you can see the picture online. You can probably Google it, but if you Google like the inside of what is the thing called?
Wampa?
No, in the desert that Boba Fett got eaten by. What are those things called?
That
the
monster
Sarlacc.
thing.
Sarlacc pit. Yeah, Sarlacc pit. Like you can Google like, oh, what does a Sarlacc pit look like? And like one of those Star Wars books, they have like a diagram of like what's underneath and all the you know, how it looks like and stuff. And it's like, I don't want to see that. You're ruining the fantasy. Like,
but that's the expanded universe stuff, isn't it?
No, it was like a Star Wars and like encyclopedia, right? And obviously that's not a big deal, but that's kind of an example of where it's like, I don't need to know that shit. I don't need to know the Han Solo's origin, because I mean, if you're gonna do it right. They didn't do it right. You know, and that applies to other characters too. Like, you know, they're making a Joker origin movie. It's like, isn't the fact that Joker doesn't have an origin, or you don't know his origin, doesn't that add to his mystery? Doesn't that add to his character? You know, they did that with the Dark Knight, how, you know, he had a different story of his origin all the time. So it's all these things, man. And I don't know, what do you think? What do you think is like the future of Star Wars? Like, I'm predicting that very soon, maybe like they're gonna either ask Kathleen Kennedy to step down, or she's gonna resign, or, you know, I'm very curious to see what Episode 9. I guess Episode 9 is gonna come out next, not this Christmas, obviously, but Christmas 2019, right? Right.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes,
the 20th or the 24th or something.
Right. That's basically going to be their last shot. You know, I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with that. Like, I want to see the trailer. Like, what are they going to try to go with that? with J.J. Abrams, I like J.J. Abrams. I like his movies. I think he's a pretty good director. I think his ideas with what he was trying to set up in The Force Awakens was kind of diverted. And that's something that pisses me off too, where it's like, at least with the Star Wars movies, whether it's the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy, at least you had the vision from one person, which was George Lucas, who had like an idea of like a beginning and a middle and an end. And this is the progression we're going to. I don't know whose idea it was to where it's like, okay, we're going to have, The Force Awakens, we're going to create all these plot threads and everything. And then the new director is like, hey, you got free reign to do whatever you want. And it's like, why don't we have a structure? That way things can make sense. That's why people are upset with the Rey's parents thing. That's why people are upset with Kylo Ren and all these things. It's like, you guys have no structure. Everyone's kind of just free willy, ready to do whatever they want. And that's not how you make a trilogy. If you're trying to make a classic all-time trilogy that, something I did in preparation for this stream is I watched because I do own The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. I own The Last Jedi, even though it's a movie I don't like. I got it because there's a documentary on there that I wanted to watch that really kind of exposes a lot of things. I mean, you can probably torrent it if you want to watch it, but it's pretty interesting. But if you watch The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi back to back, I mean, a lot of it doesn't make sense. There's no natural progression. One of my, what I like to do is that, in Christmas time during the holidays, I'll watch the original trilogy, with my friends and my family and stuff, obviously. And you can see that progression in the movies. You can see a progression of the characters, and that applies to other trilogies. The Dark Knight trilogy, The Godfather, whatever, you name it. There's going to be that progression, and I feel like that's what's lacking from this. So I'm very curious to see how JJ is going to wrap this up. I feel like he needs to drop some bombshells, like, Obi-Wan is Rey's grandpa or some shit. I don't know. Something. We'll see what they do.
Okay. The thing about you neckbeard nerds out there is that all you guys care is about story and plot and all that stuff. No, you see, movies are about struggle. They're about the struggle against the bourgeoisie or the struggle against the white supremacy.
Oh yeah.
Or against the patriarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not about having an interesting story with good characters that are relatable.
Yeah, and I know you're joking, but that's what pisses me off too, is that the characters aren't relatable. Rey is not relatable. I don't relate to someone who does something perfect. I don't relate to perfect characters. The reason I can relate to Luke Skywalker, the reason I can relate to Spider-Man is that, even though they're the hero, even though that they're trying to accomplish something great, they're going to have a struggle. They're not going to succeed all the time, right? So that's obviously what's happening here. And also, too, that's kind of I guess one of the last points of The Last Jedi that we'll talk about is with the whole Canto Bite thing, where it's like you can kind of see the indoctrination in that too, where it's like they go to Canto Bite, it's this casino planet, and they're like, there's this underlying kind of like a save the animals message where it's like, oh, the rich people are so mean and they're selling weapons to the First Order. And that time that they spent in that movie talking about that shit, where they're breaking the animals out, they're breaking the animals out of the where they're being kept. That was like perfect. That should have been more set up for Finn. Maybe like why couldn't Finn and Poe go on an adventure? Like, I wouldn't even mind if they pulled off that shit where it's like Poe and Finn are like gay characters. At least if you do it right, and it makes for a good movie, like, I don't care. So, whatever. But let's see here. I guess there's like one last thing here, and if there's anything you guys want to add, just feel free to jump in. I guess this is something we can. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, there are a lot of, it's a very volatile situation. That's a good thing to put up right there, because that's kind of where I was going with this. It's the media, Disney owns a lot of media outlets. So the media is basically going against the fans. They're trying to create all of these supposed situations that really there's no basis in. Like, she never came out and said that she deleted her Instagram because of anything like that. Neither did Daisy Ridley, really. And the media takes that and tries to run with it. I think they have a definite, it's the line has been drawn, and
Sure.
the people like Geeks and Gamers and a lot of the bigger YouTube channels that are basically, uh, from being able to get the fans' voice out. People like them are going to a lot of these websites and media out this huge thing now. And I think that's just crazy that this has happened over a film, but it shows you how passionate people are about Star Wars.
So do you think it's real? So what you're saying is that what she's saying or what the media is saying happened, you think is overblown?
I don't know. She never really released any sort of statement as to why she deleted it. I mean, you've heard Rian Johnson talking about it. You've heard a couple of people, I have anyway, assuming that that's why she deleted her Instagram. But she hasn't addressed it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that's something that's pretty crazy now too. It's like the fans are so divided. Like, I guess to kind of play devil's advocate, like, do you blame the fans where it's like, should we move on? Like, I go to your Twitter, and I because you followed me and then I followed you back and I looked at your Twitter and everything, I kind of was introduced to all these different Star Wars fans who, they hate The Last Jedi, and they have, trollish avatars, like Ruin Johnson, and it's like, tweeting stuff about the last, even to this day, still tweeting stuff about The Last Jedi and how they hate it. To kind of play devil's advocate, like, do you think like we should move on? Like, what was that? Classy, you're always doing some shit in the background, man.
Oh, I don't know. Passionate about it. Let them continue. I mean, as far as moving on, a lot of people are boycotting. They boycotted Solo, downplay that and say, oh, it's Star Wars fatigue. But there were pictures, there were photos all over the place. People were taking pictures saying, here's a picture of us at the theater to watch Solo, and there are like 4 people in the theater, and there were many pictures. So if people are passionate, maybe something can be done about it. Maybe it will cause. I don't plan on stopping anytime soon, honestly. So
yeah. And it makes sense why people like you exist, and other people on Twitter exist, and other fans I've met on social media. Because the Star Wars, like the current state of Star Wars, it seems like they are. It's like you're saying, they are against the fans. They are. Kathleen Kennedy says she does. They want like the fans to be young women and these feminist social justice people, and they don't want to worry about what's that?
The Raylos. I don't know if you're familiar with that. The people that basically obsess over some sort of perceived relationship between Kylo Ren and Rey.
Do you think that's real?
Yeah, there are Facebook pages, YouTube channels, there are Twitter accounts dedicated to it, Tumblr pages.
Oh yeah,
Raylos, they call them.
Right. No, I am familiar with that. What I'm saying is, like, you think in the movie, like they're gonna be like together.
What I've heard is that they're related somehow. I don't know if that's true or would just blow the minds. I mean, it's possible that they could end up to there are supposed leaks that are saying they have a baby in episode 9. I don't know the validity of that or not, but anything's possible. I mean,
right.
I don't know.
You got to be careful with the leaks, because something that really pissed me off too is that you know, Star Wars is so big. This franchise, this brand is so big that you have so many people on YouTube that have literally Star Wars shows. Like there's so many, like I can't even keep up with it, that all they do is speculate on new Star Wars news. And I feel like that kind of added to the disappointment because there was so much speculation from every single tidbit of news and every single tidbit of, you know, the paparazzi snapping pictures of them on the movie sets and stuff because it's so big. And because of that, you know, I remember there was a lot of people who were predicting that, you know, you know, oh yeah, they're on the planet that Luke Skywalker's on, that half the movie's on, obviously where Rey and Luke's in the movie, that, you know, that mountain planet, whatever. And you know, they predicted that, or they saw that there was like a monster. They were filming like a monster scene on that planet, and so many people were speculating, like, oh, this is so crazy. It's gonna be like a, you know, this huge like ocean monster that's gonna come out, and Rey has to fight him or whatever, and it's gonna be so badass and so cool. And they speculated so much that, you know what that scene turned out to be? That scene turned out to be those alien walrus things where Luke goes and milks their teeth and gets the green milk, and that ended up being the scene. Yeah, exactly. That ended up being the scene. So that's kind of my advice to people is like, please heed warning. You know, we like to imagine so many things, and I feel like Star Wars suffers from this the most. Even going back to the prequels, that's why people hated you know, the Phantom Menace Episode 1 when it first came out, because it was so hyped. And it seems like everybody, you know, I mean, I was very young when that movie came out, but, you know, it seemed like everybody had an idea. Like with Star Wars, if you notice, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, it seems like with Star Wars that if a new movie is coming out, we will have the idea of that movie in our heads. Like we will think like, oh yeah, you know, it happened with The Force Awakens with, you know, oh, The Force Awakens, it's going to have, you know, Luke and Han fighting together, and, you know, this is how the story is going to be. Like we make up a movie in our heads before it comes out, and then we go watch it and it's not what that idea is, obviously, and we're disappointed. You know, that happened with the Phantom Menace back in the day, and I feel like it's, you know, it's even taken to the extreme now with these new movies. So that's all what I'm saying is just be careful with the rumors and the news you see out there. Like I said, Star Wars is so big, you literally have like 100 podcasts out there that all they do is just speculate on new Star Wars things because it's so big. Let me, I guess, to kind of wrap up the stream, and you're free to say anything you want, by the way. There's a Red Letter Media. They have a really interesting video here that I want to show you guys. And that will kind of be the wrap up here. Let me stop sharing this while I look for this, and then you guys can say anything right now if you want.
Hello?
What's up?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Classy's
Yeah, I can hear you.
dude, like, you need to upgrade your internet. You're always having internet problems. Something's going on there. Let me see here. Star Wars.
Do I sound like a robot?
No, you sound good. So you've never seen Red Letter Media?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
I think you would like them. They have I really like their movie reviews. Like I put a lot of people on to their content. They got famous from bashing the prequels, but they kind of changed their stance on that, obviously with the Disney Star Wars movies coming out. But this will kind of be the last video we watch. It's basically you see the title, Why Star Wars Isn't Special Anymore. This is taken from the Last Jedi review. So let's I guess we'll watch this real quick.
Well, you talked about the original trilogy, and it's like people responded to those movies with such fandom and excitement because they liked the movies, and now that's inverted. Now they're responding to
more about the brand,
and before the movie comes out, like those Star Wars like fan conventions. What are they called? Disney Expo,
Star Wars Celebration.
The Star Wars Celebration, where they're like, here's the trailer, and it's like an auditorium of like 50,000 people, and they're all like cheering, and you know they have people up there, and it's like a political rally, and you know Kathleen Kennedy's like pounding her fists on a podium, and you know everyone's like holding up signs, so you have this weird flock mentality of people that are just like blind fans to this. It's almost like a cult now. And then the movie comes out and everybody hates it. And then they say, here's another one for you. And everyone fills up that auditorium again and starts like cheering. It's like grown-ups acting like children. Like children cheer for movie trailers. Children cheer.
Yeah.
I cried the whole time.
Or you wait till the movie comes out, you watch it, either you like it or you don't, and then you move on with your life.
We do like post-mortem, we look at all the things in it, what went wrong, what went right, we tend to break things down, but like you said, it's very black or white.
So yeah, this is an interesting point. Why I wanted to show you this is it's exactly what I'm saying, is that it's become so big, it's become so crazy that, and you also too, you have kind of these new Star Wars fans that you don't know if they actually legit like Star Wars. Like they're just, they're there just cheering and, oh my God, I love it. And it's like, why do you like Star Wars? Do you like it just because it's like the cool thing now? And, I actually grew up with Star Wars. Like I love the original movie. Like I wrote an essay about the original Star Wars. Like it's, there's a reason behind it.
I wrote an essay about the original Star Wars. Actually, my essay was actually basically bashing the prequels. I actually remembered the essay. One of the things I talked about how like the prequels, I'm just gonna summarize it because I don't want to take too much of the time. But basically, there's a famous quote from George Lucas how basically like he's saying like special effects don't really make a movie, it's like the script or whatever, and then he says, special effects without a movie, whatever, is a pretty boring thing. Yeah, but it's essentially I was like criticizing the prequels, but for not being living up to the standard.
Right. And this is my main thing with showing this and talking about this is that I feel like the movies aren't special anymore. And that's what sucks, is that's why Star Wars is so big. Not the fact that, it's Star Wars, so we like it. No, people liked it because it was so special. When you first saw those original movies, like I said, to me, the first Star Wars movie is like a perfect movie if there ever was one. So yeah, but let's just wrap this up real quick.
With some of the people out there where they're just like, fuck you, and it's strange. I think to me the strangest part is people just like screaming their heads off. It's like Beatlemania. Make another Beatles reference. It's like the girls screaming on the Ed Sullivan Show for something, except this is grown men and women.
Men mostly.
Mostly men. Wearing like porn costumes. They're in their 40s, and they're like pulling their hair out and screaming, and it's almost like conditioned, like a political rally. And that's kind of what I mean. Where it's like our political candidate can do no wrong. They're perfect in every way. Look at our political candidate. It's even those behind the scenes things on like The Force Awakens or the Rogue One Blu-ray. Have you ever watched any of those?
No, they're very calculated.
They're so glossy, and everybody got along great on set. And it's just a beautiful experience, and our political candidate can do no wrong.
Contrast that with the Phantom Menace behind the scenes.
Yes. If I forget to say action or cut, just step in and say action and cut. I manage action and cut and faster and more intense. And then mostly I sit there looking miserable and quiet.
It makes you even look back on the original trilogy and even the prequel trilogy to a certain extent and appreciate like the realness of it. Now it feels like there's a gloss over everything, and you can't really see what's behind the glass.
Welcome to Disney.
The way I approached how we would go about making episode 7 wasn't any different than what we would do with any large tentpole movie today.
There was a period, a very brief period of time, when Star Wars was just a series of well-liked blockbusters. And now it's not special anymore. And for the record, I don't think this is terrible. It's sporadically interesting. It's not an accurate statement.
That's a very good quote.
Yes, yes.
But yeah. that was his let's see here. This thing I will end. Okay, I'll stop there. All right, cool. So yeah, that's basically Red Letter Media. I really like their videos, and it's kind of just like a summary of why the it feels like the movies aren't special anymore. So I don't know. I guess we'll continue complaining about Star Wars till the end of time, or until Disney finally kills it for good. So, if there was anything else, man, you wanted to wrap up with here with on the stream after the last.
I don't know. I guess anyone watching, if they are interested in hearing people complain about Star Wars, or interested in just whatever's happening behind the scenes, the backlash, the protest, the boycott, and everything. You guys can follow me at AfterLastJedi on Twitter. Actually, but I don't have one video on it, and it's After the Last Jedi.
Right. Yeah. Your Twitter is linked in the description, guys. Please make sure to follow him. And following him too, guys, on Twitter, you actually see there's a huge movement of Star Wars fans, people on the internet just talking about Star Wars and kind of the fandom and everything. Something that I really kind of stayed out of and kind of recently got into with the whole Star Wars thing. So, please make sure to follow him. Of course, as always, I got Classy's information in the description. So if you don't have anything else to say, man, this has been Revenge of the Dreamer, and we will catch you guys next week. Thank you so much.
Nice.